How's it going? Okay, so I'm going to show you first what useCallback does not do. All right, and in that context, you will understand what it actually does and the difference between useCallback and useMemo. Bottom line, useCallback is almost completely useless, and you'll be using useMemo most of the time. All right. So now, okay. So I'm gonna link this in the description below. So this is the starting code. We don't need this at all. All right. So go ahead, create a just count, and there you go. So we'll click a button. It increases the count. Okay. So now we have very, very heavy function. It counts to like 10 million before it actually calculates. Alright, so if we put it in here, let's do like so. We run the function. It doesn't matter, just put 2 maybe into it. You will see that the UI is going to become very, very slow. Okay. So we're going to reload. Okay, look, we're trying to increase. That's because it takes very, very long time to run through that loop of 10 million and then compute. Do you understand? Because it's running a for loop. I think it's like 10 million or 100 million, something like this, right? It takes very, very long time. So this is what useCallback does not do. It will not stop this function from running if you use callback. Okay? So let's say we create const slow with use callback. Alright, so normally what do? We do React, use callback, then we'll put the function into it, and then we can, yeah, we're just not gonna do it. Okay, so naturally you think to yourself, okay, now I'm using useCallback. Surely the UI should stop. So it will compute on the first re-render, and then it will stop computing because it's a memoized function. But that's not the case. So you see, it's still running every single time you're calling it. Alright? Now, you can use this code if you want. It makes no difference. So this is going to be your arg. And then we're going to be putting arg in here. It still makes no difference. Oh, whoopsie. My apologies. So now we're going to render. Well, not render, refresh. My apologies. Now you have to understand it's very slow because this function is running every single time. So you see this did not help at all. It's very, very slow. Okay, so how do we actually fix it? Alright, so how do we actually fix it? You need to use useMemo to fix it. Okay, so the way you do that is we replace this part here with useMemo. So let's completely delete all of this stuff and then delete all of this stuff. Okay, so let's create const slow memo. Okay, so we do React, use memo. We do like so. Whoopsie. And then we want to return with 2. And now we put this in here, and then that's it. This will now fix it. So now you see UI is extremely fast because the function ran one time, we got the result, and it does not re-render anymore. So UI is like extremely fast. So again, on the load, it's going to be slow, and then it's going to be fast. I will cover after how do you actually pass arguments into useMemo, because the difference between another difference between useMemo, like useMemo, you cannot pass arguments into useMemo. It's not going to work. Like if you try to, well, let me see, if you try to put arg in here as any, I don't think it's going to work. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it will. And then we call 2. You see, it's complaining because you actually cannot do it. Okay. So I hope you understand. The most important thing to understand is that useMemo stops the function from rerunning. useCallback does not. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So then the question is, what is the purpose of useCallback? And the purpose of useCallback is very, very simple. Look, if we create use effect, all right, we put a function name as a dependency, and then we put some kind of console log, which is new function memory reference has been created. Now this is advanced stuff, so I'm just saying that, you know, if you don't understand pass by reference, pass by callback, you need to first watch that video. I'll link in the description below what you need to watch. So you need to go back and watch it before you watch this. Anyway, I'm kind of making for myself anyway. All right. So now look, what's going to happen is that every single time this re-renders, the function gets recreated. Because you have to remember that it's kind of like you initializing function over and over and over every single time there is a component re-render. So let's look at it, and you'll be able to see it. You see? Oh, actually, it's not. Wait a second. Huh? It's because it's outside of the... Wait, but that makes useCallback completely useless, to be honest with you. You can literally just not use useCallback and just put the function outside of the component, and off you go. Anyway, but you will see that in here, every time we re-render the component, the function gets recreated. You see, it just gets recreated over and over and over, because component re-renders. So now how do we stop it? Again, so now, obviously now I just figured out you can just do this. Problem solved. Alright, but you can use also useMemo. Like, you can change this function into... use callback. Yeah, there you go. So we'll wrap this function like so. No dependency, and then we need to return this. Okay, so now it's not going to re-render. It's not going to be recreated every single time. It's going to be created one time, and then you see it does not get created again. But honestly, why do that if you can just do this, basically. It's basically equivalent to doing this. So honestly, use callback to me right now is kind of gone. Like, I'm not gonna use it because I'll be just like, oh, whoops, put it in here. But I think maybe use callback. I don't know. Like, why would I use it now if I can just put it in here and then that's it? And this does exactly the same thing. Literally the same thing. Yeah, it literally does the same thing. But bottom line, if you have a function inside of the component and you don't want the reference to the function in the memory keep to be recreated over and over and over, either wrap it inside use callback or put it inside of the outside of the component. And that's it. That's pretty much the solution. Okay, so another problem. Okay, so now we covered this. We understand that useMemo computes one time, and unless the dependency changes, it will not recompute, right? Whereas useCallback only stops the function from being recreated, but it does not. It will still run. The function will still run. So now we ask the question. Okay, so how do we use useMemo with an argument? That's a good. You probably have to create a custom hook for this. So it will look something like this. Const use slow memo, right? We're gonna put arg in here, which is gonna be any. Then we're gonna do like this. We're gonna return React. I'm probably thinking something. Now, I haven't tested it yet, but I'm thinking it's gonna look like something like this. And then return, yeah, slowly in arg. So something like this. Yeah, so now we need to put dependency in here. We probably, not really, okay. So now then you're gonna have to run it. So const use slow computed value. Well, we can do final value equals use slow memo, and then you pass the argument into it, which is going to be 2, and then that's what we're going to put into whoopsie. Basically, this is what you're looking for when you want to use useCallback to produce an outcome and not run again on every re-render. So that's literally it. But you need to make sure that this thing is not inside of the component. Alright? I know it's confusing, but I mean, what can I do? It's just It is what it is, you know. Yeah, so you see, it runs one time and then that's it. It doesn't run anymore. Obviously, if you have some kind of API, you can put it as a dependency. So then, if that API value coming from arguments changes, you can then recalculate it. But again, so the final use case is that, okay, so what you do if this function is like sitting in here, like what do you do then? Well, to be honest with you, in this use case, you don't really need to do anything, but the most kind of the least resource consuming way would be to convert this function is to use callback, like this. Well, the best way to do it is just to put it out of the component, right, like this. But if it's some kind of function coming from an API, you have no control over it. Just convert it into well, if it's coming from API, I mean, so unless they anyway, bottom line, if it's coming from API, it's probably going to act like this. But if you are stuck and it's sitting in here, just convert it into slow memo function equals react use callback. Oh, mamma mia, we need to put it. We're basically wrapping it with a. Wait, I don't need to do this. I can just do this. Yes. And now run this function here. That's like the fastest way of doing it. So now you eliminate the problem of the function being recreated on every re-render. So we're just gonna put, I don't know, we're just gonna put this thing so you'll be able to see that it's. Whoopsie, I'll just put function, recreate it. So now this solves all of the problems that you could possibly have. Okay? So now you have very fast UI, you have function inside of the component that is not being recreated every single time you re-render, and you have a memoized value, which is 4 in here, that is not being recomputed on every single re-render. If that makes sense. That's like the fastest way of doing it. Now compare that to yeah, you see what you're adding so much code. Holy smokes. But you can kind of move this code to a separate file, honestly. And then it's gonna look cleaner. Otherwise you're gonna get your head is gonna explode, you know? So much code reading. Anyway, fundamentally, like what I really wanted to drill in this video is that use callback does not stop the function from running. It only stops the reference to the function of being recreated. So you see, like fundamentally it's kind of useless because you could just move the function into a helper file, or you can put it outside of the component, like anywhere, And that's kind of works as a use callback, because every time component re-renders, it just does not recreate the reference to it. So that's what use callback is used for, right? And if you want, now, if you really want to stop recalculation of the function, you need to use useMemo. And then the final use case, how do we use useMemo with an argument? You create a custom hook, and then you call it in here, and then that's it, right? It's a bit longer code, but I mean, it saves resources. Otherwise, your UI is just way too slow. All right? Take care. Bye-bye.